Welcome back to another segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons, as I take up more of your questions in another segment of Ask Judy. This question is from Lost South Lake Crafters, who asked, would you share how you came to start this channel covering the Waltons? Yes, it was during COVID. Everything had shut down. I was scheduled to be directing a film, and that was on hold. It never did end up happening, but because we were all sort of stuck at home and I was looking for different things that I could do and ways to interact with people, I came across through a series of events that Cammie had done a few videos about behind the scenes of the Waltons and talking about the first episode, The Foundling. And I thought, oh, well, how clever. And I could do a variation of that. I could do my own version of talking about things I remember from filming or share aspects of the Waltons. So it sort of started that way, as a way to reach out to people and interact during the pandemic and when we were all sort of stuck at home and it was hard for us to have that interaction. So that was my motivation for starting it. And I thought I might just do it for a little bit and that might be it. And as more and more people started watching and I was getting such a lovely response to it and there seemed to be a genuine interest, I thought, well, I'll just continue it for now. And then I would find new topics. People would suggest things. And then I started doing these Ask Judy segments because so many people asked questions. And so I thought, well, I can answer questions that I get asked. So it's just kind of developed from there, but that was kind of how it started. This question is from Lady K, who is responding to my weekend series and with Ralph Sinensky. What a lovely way to start the weekend. Did Beulah ever comment on the fact that the reading was canceled and missing the show she had tickets for? Just being able to meet and talk with a great legend and actress must have been amazing. Also, did you have different films to choose from when you did theater scenes and actually showed films? Okay. So I never heard anything about the canceled reading because, the kids, the younger cast, was never invited to those readings anyway. So I never heard that story until Ralph shared it. So in terms of the filming of theater sequences, I imagine, I'm not sure who made those decisions. Ralph Sinensky talked about in, I believe, the Firestorm, that they actually showed real footage. So it might have been rights related, like what films they could get the rights to or things like that. What would fit the story, what might, obviously, theoretically, time-wise, what film might have been popular at that time. Not that we know that timelines get a little fudged here on the Waltons, so can't guarantee that it had to do with that. But maybe that's something that Ralph can answer when we speak again. Or maybe he'll answer that in the comments below, because I know he sometimes pops on and watches some of these. So thanks for asking that. This question is from Wonder Rob, who said, how do I ask questions to Ask Judy episodes? Well, you did great, because here I am and I'm going to answer your question. So exactly what you did, just put it in the comment section of any video. The only thing I say is that I don't always, if people respond to other people's comments, then I don't always get to see those. So I would just say, start a new comment. And that's the way that I will typically see them, because my filters are for new comments, but that doesn't necessarily include new responses to older comments. Okay, I hope that made sense. Anyway, so your question then is wanting to ask, do you have any stories to share about interacting with other famous kid families? For example, the Jacksons, the Osmonds, the Bradys, the Partridges. We didn't specifically interact with them. I know we did a bit with the 8 is Enough cast, because they were also a Lorimar production, who were the producers of the Waltons, and did cross paths with the cast from the Brady Bunch, but not specifically because it was the Waltons and the Bradys, but sometimes we would just end up at different events together. So I think I met all of them perhaps individually at different things, but not necessarily all together. When you do telethons and you do parades and you do different sorts of, like, I would meet people at every year CBS would have an affiliates dinner for their affiliates all over the country, and they'd have a big dinner party, big banquet, and they would invite all of the actors from their CBS shows, and then we would go and we would meet the affiliates and sit at their tables, and it was part of CBS's way of thanking the affiliates and also urging them. They were trying to get them to pick up all the various different CBS shows to run on their local TV channels. So I would meet a lot of people at things like that, but the Bradys and the Partridges, I don't think were CBS shows, so I wouldn't have met them there. I have crossed paths with Danny Bonaducci from the Partridge Family, and I think I might have met David Cassidy at some point, but honestly, I don't remember. Sometimes you meet someone for like a half a second, or they're just at a function and maybe they're there and I didn't even get a chance to say hello. So I wish I had better stories. I really don't. One of my fun ones was because we had a softball team. The Waltons had a softball team and other shows had softball teams. And I remember our show playing against the Happy Days show. And I didn't know that cast. And as we were changing over from outfield to the bench, because we were going to be batting now, and I'd been gradually saying hello to the different members of the cast who were there, and I passed by Henry Winkler, who I had not met yet, and I just sort of stopped and said, "Hey, I just wanted to say hello, and love your work." And he was very, very sweet, and he was like, "Oh, well, thank you." And then a little bit later, or right around, he went, he said, "I just realized who you are, and oh, I really love your show too." And Henry's a really very kind, very nice person. And when I've run across him at other times, I think some of the Waltons were at an autograph show in New Jersey. Their Chiller has some thing, and we were at it, and Henry was there with his new book at the time, and we went over to say hello, and he was so sweet, and he's like, "Oh, hi," and he remembered us. And so those are always really nice when you get a chance to see people a few times. And I have worked with Anson Williams. Anson and I did a show up in Canada for 3 or 4 months on stage together, a production of Social Security. And Don Most and I have worked on stage a number of times and done some concerts together. And so those types of things are fun. And of course, Aaron Moran was a guest on our show, and Ron Howard was a guest on our show. So those are probably, as a cast, the most interactive that we have been with members of another show cast. So that's what I got for you on that one. Okay, so Tracy here said that her family is sort of known as the English Waltons. In the 80s, when she had 6 children that were little, and they were featured in several magazines and television appearances as I based my parenting on the Waltons. Oh, that is so cool. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you to your family, the English Waltons. Hey, hi. I have lots of relatives in England, so now I have Walton relatives as well. This one is from Janet Smart, Country Living, who asked, "I always wondered what happened to Jason's wife. When they arrived at the house with all their kids when Janet was having the baby, Jason's wife went inside and Jason told the kids she was going to help with the delivery. You never see her again." That sort of thing happens. This was in A Walton Easter, the very last Walton reunion movie that we filmed. And my take on it is that they had them arrive, and then they had that line. But then the reality was it was a very small, tight set that we were working in when I, as Mary Ellen, was delivering Janet's twins. So I think, and Mama was in there, and I think they just wanted to keep it just confined. So it was really just me and Olivia. So Why we never saw her again, it probably things were shot on different days maybe when she wasn't working. So perhaps later on when we came back into the living room for different things, it was a day she wasn't working. That shot when they all arrived, and probably when Jason said that, because he kept the kids outside. So I imagine that would have been an exterior day. And then once she entered the house, anything inside the house would have been an interior day. So my bet was it was just she wasn't working on those days, and they decided that they weren't going to bring her in just to be part of the crowd. And this is from JJJJ muted. Okay, but you did say that your name is actually Jason, so hi, Jason. But you were saying that you wish that we had used Robert Donner more as Yancey Tucker. Yeah, he was such a great character, and Yancey was just such an original, and Bob Donner was so terrific in those types of roles. So yeah, it would have been fun to have Yancey around more, but we were glad to have him to the degree that we did. So always fun to have Bob Donner in an episode. A number of people have been asking me to do shout outs, and I don't know that I'll be able to do all of them, but I'll pop them in here and there. So for today, Charles Sisney asked that I say hi. So hello, Charles, and thanks for watching my channel. This question is from Kenneth, who said, I know that movies are more costly to produce than the running time, and the running time is longer. Are there other major differences between filming a Waltons TV episode and a Waltons TV movie? It depended. Sometimes it depended on sets and locations. For the most part, no. We would film, like when we did 2-hour episodes, like the Easter story at the end of season 1, or the wedding, the outrage at the beginning of season 9. Typically that was shot like 2 episodes. So we had 6.5 days for each one. So it would still be about a 13-day shoot of 14 days. The TV movies, we might have had a few extra days. I honestly don't remember, but a lot of that we were able to get through things because the sets were there. They were lit. So on those interior sets, the rigging was all up, like in the living room, in the kitchen, in the bedrooms, in Godsy's store, in the Baldwin sisters. So when they have hung all the lights, you can work much faster because each time they go back into the set, those lights are there. They turn them back on. The ones that they need, they point them the direction they need them. So that makes it faster. So it might have been a longer pre-production because with the TV movies, they would have had to perhaps put sets back together and set dress them again and that. So that would have added time to pre-production that we didn't need between episodes. New sets would have to be assembled and stuff like that. But the house, which, the main part of the story usually takes place in the house or the outside of the house and the mill and all that kind of stuff. I've also been asked about the fact that in the later reunions, although that there had been the new mill, but then you saw in the one that I just talked about, the Thanksgiving reunion, which was the 1993 one, that they were back working in the old mill. My guess is because they had to rebuild, that they did not rebuild the new mill. That had probably burned down as well. So they just dealt with the old mill in the barn area rather than also reconstructing the new mill. So those types of things happened with that. But otherwise, for our shows, not terribly different in terms of the filming. Regular films, with a much bigger budget than ours, they will spend more time on each scene. So where we might shoot 8-9 pages of script a day, they might shoot 1 or 2 pages or half a page, or spend 3 days shooting one scene that lasts 2 pages. So they just spend a lot more time on each thing that they're doing. Thank you once again for joining me for this segment of Ask Judy. If you enjoy these segments, please do hit like and subscribe. I will see you on a future episode of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons, and I'll answer more of your questions in another Ask Judy and hopefully have some more special guests as well. Thanks for watching.